Let's talk about football now, starting off with the Nigerian Premier Football League. We saw interesting results from game day, and we'll take a look at some of those results that will be flashing on your screen, with El Kanemi Warriors getting a 1-0 win over Plateau United. Katsina United defeated Nasarawa United 1-0, and there was a goalless draw between Bendel Insurance and Bayelsa United, while Enugu Rangers got back to winning ways, defeating Wiki Tourist 2-0. Enyimba at home lost to Ikorodu City 1-0, and there were a lot of controversial moments in that game, both on and off the pitch. We've got to talk about that in a bit. While Kano Pillars and Kwara United played out a 1-1 draw. Remo Stars played out a 1-1 draw with Abia Warriors, and of course the chairman of Remo Stars has said that Remo Stars will not be relegated from the NPFL this season. But of course, it's enough for you to say something, that the next is to do it right there on the football pitch. And I hope that Remo Stars, champions of the NPFL, do not get relegated this season. Shooting Stars defeated Warri Wolves by 4-2. And now, talking about the Nigerian Premier Football League, let's go back to that game between Enyimba and Ikorodu City. Now, the Abia State chapter of the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria, talking about SWAN, has condemned the actions of a match commissioner, Saidu Yakubu Aliyu, and his officials for not allowing any journalist entry into the Enyimba Stadium during the Enyimba versus Ikorodu City game. Now, that happened on Sunday. The sports writers who described the actions of the match commissioner as ugly, an ugly dance of disrespect and shame, warned that the actions are capable of compromising the transparency of the league. Now, a statement signed by the chairman of Abia State chapter of SWAN, Kingsley Okwun, and the secretary, Bethel Kalu, urged the Nigerian Premier Football League, the NPFL, and the Nigerian Football Federation to investigate the reports. As, according to the SWAN leaders, such could bring the NPFL games into disrepute if allowed to continue. According to Abia SWAN, journalists who had come from different parts of the country to cover the Enyimba versus Ikorodu City match were not allowed to enter the stadium unless they produced identification cards. SWAN explained that despite producing the identification cards, the journalists were still not allowed to enter the stadium on the claims that the match was to be played behind closed doors. Now, I've got Bella Ikoma, who was also present right there at the stadium, and she complained bitterly about what happened right there at the stadium. She's right here with us to narrate her story. Remember, Bella is a former media officer for Nigeria's Flamingos. Bella, thank you for joining the show. I mean, what exactly happened yesterday? We're hearing different stories. They said the reason why they didn't allow journalists into the pitch to cover that game was because it was supposed to be played behind closed doors. And I know for sure that playing behind closed doors does not stop. It should not stop journalists from doing their jobs.
When I arrived there at the stadium, I found that journalists, they shot almost all the journalists I saw there were still outside. And then I had my own tag. I had my tag, and my tag bears my name and also my phone number. So you cannot just use my tag to get entrance into the stadium. So it was not a case of not being identified properly. No, nothing like that. It was just a case that the match commissioner was just out there to stop journalists, because when we went there, we waited for the media officer of Enyimba, and when he came, he said that the match commissioner insisted that it was only that he had to only 5 journalists. I told him that there's nowhere in the world that the match commissioner determines the media that will come for a game. That he is just the match commissioner, that the media has their own role to play, and he has no right to decide the number of media comes there. We are the ones that are the news. We can't see as the enemy. But then we waited for him. One of us, Frank Okoye, actually went inside to tell him, to cajole him actually to allow us to enter. But he insisted that he's not going to allow us to enter. And to think that the team manager of team coordinator of Ikorodu FC even had a say. I mean, away team had a say in the number of journalists that will come in, and he said that if the journalists come in, that they are not going to play that game. And they also insisted on that, because about the game started 14 minutes after when it should have started. It was delayed for 14 minutes before it started. So we waited there. We were there. We waited throughout. I mean, the first half, I couldn't get interest. No journalist get interest in the stadium. They insisted that we were not going to enter the stadium. And there's no way in the world, it's closed up, that you don't allow journalists to walk. We are not the enemies. We are actually people.
All right. I mean, the network isn't so friendly, but we're able to pick what you said about complaining about what happened yesterday, and also Ikorodu City media officer having a say in what happened yesterday. Who would you fault for this? Is it the NPFL or is it the match commissioner and everybody who had a hand in that game yesterday between Enyimba and Ikorodu City?
Well, first of all, I'll fault the commissioner. He is the match commissioner, right, to see what people do. We have to report the game. When anyone loses or we need to report what we see there, we have to be neutral. And then we went there just to do our jobs, and they are telling us that we have to stay outside, that is closed, or that we don't have to come in. And outsider, meaning outsider, what I mean, and a visiting team coordinator had even a say that if we enter, that they will not start the game, that they even had to delay that game for 14 minutes, to the extent that Frank Okoye, one of us, had to call Davison Owumi, the CEO of the Nigerian Professional Football League, and he even told the match commissioner to allow some journalists gain entrance into the stadium. The man insisted that no journalists will be there. Inside that stadium. We had to stay outside throughout that match, which is not something that happens even if it's outside the country. It's unheard of that you will not allow journalists to come and do their jobs, and you tell them to stay outside. And what is even your reason? Because when I said, okay, even if they can give me entrance into the stadium, let me go in and ask the man the reason for that. They didn't even allow me to pass the gate. So you can see all of us were there under the scorching sun. We were waiting, and we waited throughout the match. We were not allowed to enter the stadium. And there was no reason for that. Because you cannot tell me it's just closed door. If it's closed door, during the COVID-19, we covered matches and we went inside the stadium. We gained entrance. Once you are an accredited journalist, you have to enter the stadium and do your job. Once you are not a journalist who has been banned, you are allowed to enter the stadium to do your job.
All right, we look forward to more updates, and we want to see what the NPFL will do regarding this situation. I say thank you very much, Bella, for joining us on the show today. Hopefully, the next game, I mean, that game eventually ended in a loss for Enyimba, a 1-0 win for Ikorodu City, who are top of the table. But we'll see. I mean, we need our leagues to do better, and we need to see better games right there, because on the continent, we are doing poorly when it comes to the CAF competitions. But I say thank you very much for joining the show today, and always a pleasure having you.